Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Let's get back to Iraq. Look, people are starting to rise up. Who do you think is going to feel the pressure the most? Do you think the coordinating framework gives a crap about what people do when they rise up versus Solder, who's more for the people? I'm curious to see in this game of chicken who it is that's going to flinch. I don't think Solder is going to flinch. I do think Solder can form a better government than the corrupt coordinating framework, but there are some steps that Solder has already taken that's reflecting really bad on him and his position and the type of government we might be able to look forward to. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a moment. Before we get started, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. If you're going to buy gold and silver, go to our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. All right, so let's go over some of the news over the last couple of days. The Parliament is set next Wednesday as the date for voting on the food security law. Remember, this is how Solder circumvent what the Supreme Court did by denying Al-Qademi the right to pass certain laws, claiming that Al-Qademi really doesn't have any power. He's just a placeholder, so to speak, is what the Supreme Court was saying. But there are loopholes, and of course, Solder knows them. This right here is to benefit the people of Iraq. It's the food laws. They definitely need to get taken care of, get compensated, because they're the ones suffering the most. So there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday in which they're going to be voting for the emergency support law for food security and development. So let's see what happens once that is passed. Right now, they seem to be moving forward without the coordinating framework no matter what. Then also you got Baghdad and Tehran are discussing a payment of the financial dues owed by Iraq. This is for the energy, obviously. So the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq discussed with the Iranian ambassador to Iraq on Monday aspects of banking and economic cooperation with Iran and the payment of financial dues. So a statement came from the central bank to the news stating they congratulated him on the occasion of assuming the position, looking forward to great cooperation in the next stage. It said the meeting discussed aspects of banking and economic cooperation between the two countries, the payment of the financial dues owed by Iraq, and overcoming the obstacle facing the work of Iranian companies in the country. The governor of the central bank affirmed, according to the statement, his keenness to develop and strengthen banking relations to serve the interests of the two countries and open new horizons in bilateral relations. So we know there's an issue between what's going on in Kurdistan and what's going on in Baghdad. It's over the gas and oil laws. Kurdistan doesn't want to give up the right to extract and sell oil from their own territories. So there's a constitutional conflict that's trying to be ironed out. Right now we got the Supreme Court. There's some biasness on this Supreme Court. But Kurdistan has made the case that, hey, this Supreme Court was not put together constitutionally. Therefore, we don't have to recognize it. There is a delegation from Kurdistan regional government to Baghdad tomorrow. So the Kurdistan regional government announced today, which was Sunday, that they decided to send a negotiating delegation to Baghdad to maintain dialogues with the federal government in order to guarantee the constitutional rights of the region. So a statement of the government's information department received by the news stated that with the aim of perpetuating the dialogue between the Kurdistan regional government and the federal government, and in order to guarantee the constitutional rights of the people of the region, a delegation from the regional government will go to Baghdad, including both the minister of the region for negotiations with federal government, head of the Cabinet Office of Regional Council of Ministers, head of the Coordination and Follow-up Department, and head of the Office of Financial Supervision in the region. Man, they have a lot of different ministries and departments, that's for sure. These negotiations have been going on for quite some time. They can't seem to get things ironed out. Now that there's a constitutional conflict. What we don't want to see is this escalate into something bad. You really don't. Solder right now has an alliance with two people to come from the Kurdistan region. They want to form a majority government. The last thing he needs on his plate is this tension between Baghdad and Kurdistan. I knew that when Sadr wanted to pass a law making it illegal for anybody in Iraq to normalize any type of relations with Israel, and that it's punishable by death, that would not reflect good on him nor his government. But they're hell bent on making that happen, and already they're starting to see repercussions from this, the type we don't want to see happen in Iraq. This is a new threat in Iraq to peace in the Middle East. On his coming trip, Biden needs to confront Baghdad on its new law barring contact with all of Israel. And there's reasons for that. There's people who are concerned in Iraq that have already established organizations and business relations with Israel. There's a group of people who are following an individual from Israel, and they're worried about their own lives, as you're going to see in this article. It said the gains the U.S. has made towards peace between Israel and its neighbors are in danger. The Abraham Accords, of course, this is something that Trump put together. It said established in 2020 have created economic and diplomatic benefits for the four countries that agreed to normalize relations with the Jewish state. But an opposing coalition has effectively formed out of the states political parties and militia allied with Iran, Qatar, and Kuwait extremist financiers. Last month, Iraqi's parliament passed an anti-normalization law prescribing death for the slightest contact with an Israeli citizen. Last week saw calls to enact similar laws by parliament members and militia from North Africa to the Gulf of Yemen, controlled by the Iranian-backed Houthis movement. Passed similar legislation Thursday ahead of President Biden's trip to Israel, the Palestinian area, Saudi Arabia, and possibly other Arab states. This axis of resistance threatens to block diplomatic efforts to expand the Abraham Accord or even to reverse some of its progress. The administration must help Arab peace advocates stop it. I never could understand those who turn their back on peace. Now I'll be the first to admit I am not engulfed into the politics of the Middle East. I got an understanding of it, but not firm enough. I get that there's a lot of religious sectors out there. There's a lot of tribes. They've been going at each other for hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years. They just don't see eye to eye. No matter what you do, they're never going to be friends. But I think this type of relationship benefits all nations out there, including the citizens. This is an unfortunate event for Sadr, in my opinion. I just hope it doesn't come back to bite the Iraqi people in the butt because of his decision to pass such a law. Iran and its allies understand how civil engagement with Israel eases the path to diplomatic progress, to silence peaked activists and assault and dissent ties. Civilians vulnerable to prosecutions and even execution include 750,000 Iraqis who follow Israel's office Arabic social media pages. Can you imagine that? Just because you follow a page on Facebook, you could be executed. Iraqi politicians who have visited Israel privately to catalyze diplomacy. Iraqi and Israel entrepreneurs and aid workers active in the Kurdish north. And the 312 Iraqi nonprofits. It said a Center of Communications convened in Erbil in September to call for peace with Israel. The new law marks us all for death, the former Iraqi culture minister official who moderated our conference told me over the phone. It opens the door wide to tyranny in Iraq, which is not what you want. You know, there's a lot of hopes on Sadr whipping that country into shape and staying to the white papers so that they could rebound economically and thrive and flourish. I really do believe Sadr is there for the people, but these types of movements, these types of actions do not bode well with the international community, and I don't think Sadr cares, unfortunately. So this might hinder some opportunities for Iraq. Only time will tell. You don't want a government of tyranny, that's for sure. You can see right here it says the proliferation of these laws could also slow the transition of countries in North Africa and the Gulf from quietly taking Israeli security assistance to establish fuller civil and government ties in the Palestinian areas where Mr. Biden's visit aims to revive dormant diplomacy. Irredentist factions will be bolstered by the new resistance and ensure that no formula for compromise with Israel enjoys a public debate. But there are those who support peace in the region. Iraqi's new anti-normalization law, which was initiated by Shiite Sadrists and boasted by the parliament speaker, who is Sunni, runs counter to much public sentiment. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Nothing is worse than you have politicians doing the opposite of what the public actually wants. Remember, you're voted into office by these individuals to do what they want, not what you want. This is a bad situation, in my opinion, for Iraq. It says, longing for Iraq's ancient Jewish population, which accounts for 40% of the Baghdad in the mid-20th century, intensifies these sentiments. It said the pro-Israel population in other Arab nations is likely smaller than Iraqis, but the region still has many peace promoters and brave activists who are organizing against similar laws, notably the group in Hezbollah dominated Lebanon that recently organized to challenge anti-normalization laws. Well, that's definitely bold. There's no doubt about it. There are many people that believe that this is a push by Iran, not so much Iraq, but Iran. Right here it says, by supporting local advocates of peace, America can thwart the ambition of Iran, its proxy, and others who share their aspiration to isolate Israel. Washington should explicitly affirm that Iraqis favoring peace have the same right to express themselves as those who disagree, and underscore the laws to the contrary violated the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Iraq signed. So they're already signing agreements that they put themselves into by passing such a law. So we don't want this to happen. This is going to be bad. It could cause a lot of restrictions. It could cause sanctions all over with Iraq, only because of the stupid law that they passed, making it illegal for them to normalize or even communicate with people from Israel. And the penalty is death. It's not what we want to see starting off Sadr's reign as a leader of the new government. It's already having a pissy start with the fact that they're in deadlock and can't form a government, which is affecting the overall economy and GDP growth. They need to form a government. They need to pass a budget just to get back on track. And now you want to try to pass an anti-normalization law? Not very good. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think down below. Hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. And I'll catch you later. I'm out.